Welcome to Mental Health Mondays. We're so happy to have you guys back with us today. For those of you who were here last week, you know we're doing part two to Killing Burnout. I'm excited about this book. I've shared this book and even our video from last week with at least 3 clients in
Oh,
this last
wow.
because they come in talking about burnout. And I was like, well, let me tell you, I'm doing a program with this doctor. And then I'm able to share the book. I even show the video so that I share it with them so that they can watch and get some of that information. So this is a very good topic that affects many people. It's very practical. It's what's going on in people's lives right now. So Killing Burnout, we're going to continue that our conversation today. And the book, the co-author is my co-host, Dr. Ricardo Whyte. So welcome to you, Dr. Whyte.
Thank you so much for having me on our show.
Well, you are welcome. Thank you for
Yeah,
writing a book so we could talk about this on
no,
Mental Health Mondays and to
ab-
be a blessing to so many. Go
absolutely.
ahead.
Well, I'm so encouraged to know that it is a blessing to so many people, but you're seeing it as relevant in your practice as
Oh
well.
yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely. Definitely. People are just tired of being tired and they don't know what to do. And that they just think, I think we talked about some of this last week. They just think, okay, this is just the way life is going to be. So I just have to keep being tired all the time and just being burnt out and overwhelmed and just generally not happy, overly stressed out. So we're going to jump into that, but we want to say welcome to all of our viewers. And I heard Clint was on first, as always. Welcome,
And the
Clint,
zone.
from the Longview,
Gre-
Texas.
Greetings from Longview, Texas, man, or
Yes,
greetings
yes,
to
yes,
Longview, Texas, from Southern
yes,
California. We also have
yes.
H. McDonald. Um, I don't know if this is his or her first time, but welcome to
Right.
you. We see
Yeah.
Veronica Roderick. That's right.
Yes. And
Represent
Veronica's
Veronica.
always with us.
Absolutely. We appreciate you.
Yes, yes, yes. We're so glad to have all of you here with us. Please, you're going to be part of our conversation. So if you have questions, comments, please put it in the chat because we'd like to address some of those questions that you have. And let me want to say, can't talk today. Want to welcome everyone again, first time in the chat, and let us know where you're viewing so we can say a special welcome to you. We've had guests, our viewership from Pakistan. We've had viewership from Australia. So that's just amazing.
New
They're just like
Zealand.
a whole, yeah, New Zealand. They're like a whole day ahead of us. And so it's a blessing when they
Nice.
come and join us for Mental Health
Absolutely.
Mondays. So we are just
Yeah.
thankful to have all of you here. And what we're going to do first is we're going to recap. We're going to recap some of the things we talked about last week. And even in the intro, when Dr. Whyte and I were talking, we were just highlighting that people are tired of being tired and just overwhelmed and stressed out. And then when they get to that point, they're just burnt out. And that is, I don't know if you have statistics. Do you? I mean, you wrote the book, so I'm just thinking you must have did some research.
Well,
I mean, do
well,
we have statistics of how many
we
people are
do. We do.
feeling this way? Feeling okay? Let's talk about that. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics estimates that about 96 million people in the workforce are experiencing some form of burnout. And
Mm,
that's a pretty considerable number because to my recollection, that's roughly about 40% of the workforce.
wow.
So this is something that is pretty pervasive.
Yes.
Um, yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, and just in it's one thing to talk about those big numbers. It's another then to see what you actually experience. And so as you're working alongside people and they're telling you what it is that they're going through, you just got the sense that this was a topic that deserved some pretty serious attention. Uh,
Yes. Most definitely. And as we're talking, as you're talking, I should say, you would think employers would be very interested interested and even their employees reading or hearing about the things that you're going to share. Because if you can help your employees, in this way, they're going to be better employees because they're going to have more balance in their life and they won't be overly stressed in a negative way with the negative stress. And so, yeah, I can see employers really wanting
Well,
their employees to hear this information.
it's one thing to wait until a person is, burnt out and they're struggling with all these issues, right?
Right.
But when interventions are targeting people at that level, what happens is at best, they're just trying to get them back to baseline.
Yes.
But when employers have the insight to say, no, let me intervene upstream, then they can actually get people now more towards peak performance.
Hmm.
So, and that when it's time for people to really compete, what they're really wanting is that people be positioned to perform at their peak. So that's what we're really
Hmm.
excited about is we're not just waiting for people to burn out. We're like, hey, let's intervene upstream from that. And
Yes.
also, when you look at the typical EAP program, the EAP program, it's estimated they will typically impact about 5% of that workforce.
Hmm.
Now, what's tragic about that is, so a lot of people, they're having subclinical symptoms. They're you and I, they're, just trudging along.
Right.
Well, at the Mastermind Institute, we think it's unfair that if a person doesn't break down, they don't get any support.
Right.
So we really designed our program for that 95% that at times they don't get any support. Well, no more need for stigma, no more need for, being worried about your privacy. No, now you can participate in a program where you can be proactive about your
Hmm.
well-being. And that's what we're really excited about. You can actually be proud that you have the insight and the commitment to address your mental health needs like this.
Right. You're talking about that 95. You said 95% or
95%.
95%.
Often they don't really get
Right.
support because it's like you're not in
They
crisis.
they look like they're okay. They look
They
like
look
they're
like
okay.
they're okay.
I
And
feel like
and I
that's I feel like that 95% is like, and I always talk about gauging women, but I feel like 95% is, and it is males and females, but a lot of women are a part of that 95%. We just seem like they're mothers, they're workers, they're daughters, they're wives, and they just seem like they're not in crisis, they're not, emotionally breaking down, but they need these resources. They need some assistance
it's
because they're
like you get
just spend so much
neglected.
of themselves in all these different areas. Say that again?
Right. It's like you get neglected because you don't break down
Mhm.
completely, and there
Exactly. No, it's
isn't
true.
intervention there's an intervention beforehand. Like it's
Mhm.
time for us to intervene and presume that people could use the support until proven otherwise. Like we should intervene. And with our burnout system, it allows you to do that.
I want everyone to put a 1 in the chat, and we haven't even jumped in and really done the recap yet, but if you're put a 1 in the chat if you resonate with what Dr. White just shared about that 95%. Like, you haven't broken down, but you definitely need that assistance and resources because you're overwhelmed, but you're not in crisis. And it may not, yes, well, okay. Yes, I'm putting my finger up and I'm just say that this is so it's familiar to a lot of people, and I always know I always
Wow.
go back to moms, but moms really go through this. They really do, because sometimes kids don't recognize it, husbands don't recognize it. It's like mom is doing so much and she needs to learn how to kill burnout. She needs those resources. So yeah, thank you for putting the 1 in the chat. So this topic really resonates with so many people. And we want to recap, Dr. White. So last week, I know we talked
Can
about,
I just echo your sentiments though about mom?
yeah, yeah.
And I remember when my wife was pregnant, And as like this husband, wanting to do a good job, mind you, I was
Right.
oblivious. I was oblivious to her stressors and what she was
Mercy.
doing for me.
Mercy,
Um,
mercy, mercy,
you
mercy.
know, and I have so much sympathy for like women who are going through that experience. And a lot of times there just isn't a setting for you to say, look, I am beyond. I am beyond the need of support. And the poor guy's right next to you, just kind of aloof to what's going on with you. And
Right.
sometimes because they're going through their issue,
They
and
have their issues
that's
that they're going through.
like they're completely consumed with what they're doing. That person, poor woman, is consumed with what she's doing, and they just aren't in a position to put one another's fire, out, so to speak, and prevent the burnout. So it's a very powerful statement that you're making, and the call to action
Mhm.
from that is, get the support.
Yeah,
Those of you that are next to a woman that's going through something like that, be more attentive and
definitely.
really listen to where is your partner coming from, and listen, really and truly listen. So I didn't
Yeah,
want to
truly
skip over that because I know
listen,
I
because
made
men
that
are
mistake.
yeah, men are so good at compartmentalizing than better than women are. It's like it's just all here. The stress reaches every different compartment of our brain and everything that we're doing. Like we can't just put it into like one box and then like move on and do different things. We kind of spread it out and it just spreads and touches all parts of our life.
Right.
And so, yeah. But that's not what the book is all about, even though, I
Right.
mean, it is.
No,
That's
no,
another
right.
topic. I feel like you could do this book and put it in I don't want to say subtopics or categories like how to kill burnout, learning how to kill burnout as a mom, learn how to kill burnout as a dad, learn how to kill burnout as a in your work situation. I mean, whatever. Like it really could have like you could just focus on you can zone in on and just hone in on different areas for different people. But
No,
I don't
absolutely. No, well said.
know. Maybe you'll have the energy to yes. So from last week, I talked about some of the ways
We
to kill burnout, and we talked about I think we talked about
we talked
sleep,
about
we
the
talked about
burn,
rest. I'm sorry, say that again.
right? We started by discussing this concept of the
The
burn,
burn. Yes.
and we looked at the burn in two different ways. One burn, especially in the beginning of the book, is sometimes when your values or your commitments are in conflict with what you actually want to do. That's one
Right.
burn,
Right.
right? But then the other burn that we talk about is that burn that where when your resources become depleted, now you're at risk of course, burning out. And
Mhm.
so then we talked about, well, what are the ways that you can position yourself to not burn out? And so that's where
Mhm.
we introduced the concept of the
Yes.
7 vitals. And there being 7 vital
Yes.
areas of your life that if you strategize effectively in those, it can help you kill burnout. And so I know last week we started with time, and we
Mhm.
talked about how with time you can absolutely position yourself to make good decisions around your time, and actually leverage your time to be
Mhm.
one of the things that helps you with burnout. We talk about
Mhm.
think about time the same way you think about your money. Like
Money. Yes.
when somebody says, "Hey, can I borrow $5?" You wait. What are you going to
Yeah.
do with that $5? And it's not a matter of you don't have the $5. I got $5, but what are you going to do with it? Blah blah blah.
Right.
And we got to be the same way with our time. What are you going to
Mhm.
do with that time, and is it really me that you need it for? And but because time is a fantastic resource, and we
Mhm.
absolutely have to have a mindset where we protect our time and use it effectively. Were you going to say something?
Well, because I was just thinking this is something that you shared when you and your co-author were on goodness, it's been over a year and you were talking about the same topic before the book was out, obviously. And it's something, it was a tool and a tip that I was doing, but I'm more committed to it now just because of how you guys put it all together. And it has to do with time. So just spending 5 minutes the evening before your next day. So like this evening, I'll need to do 5 minutes after this program to organize and just to prepare, what I'm going to do, or just to look at what I'm going to do, look at my schedule, do some of the things that I need to do. So tomorrow is the things in tomorrow run smoothly, and I'm not stressed out about the organization of tomorrow. Just taking 5 minutes in the evening. And that
Totally.
takes a lot. That takes a lot of stress. Like, how tomorrow's going to flow. And then and I takes off
Oh, well said.
unnecessary stress.
And I'm so glad you did.
Yes.
But it just shows you how some of the small things you do can have just such of a giant impact. And of
Yes.
course, the other thing being like now when you wake up in the morning, benefiting from the work your mind has been doing because you kind
Right.
of pose the challenge to it, you pose the schedule. Well, now when you wake up in that quiet calm, now you just run through, hey, what has my mind been telling me about how maybe I can
Mhm.
do this more effectively? What are some of the eurekas that you come to? Because your brain has been working for you all night.
Right.
And then
Yeah.
how do I want this day to now unfold? So that
Mhm.
time invested in the morning and the time invested in the evening, super high yield with protecting your time. You're like, well, I'm going to be in this region of the city at this time. So what other things can I do before I
That I
get
need
back
to.
to this region?
Yes.
And that's your time, that's your resources, and all of that those are the things that help you kill
Mhm.
burnout.
Yes. 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 And it's very simple. It kind of reminds me, even though, I mean, we talked about that other book for so long, but Atomic Habits, meaning make it a habit to do that 5 minutes in the evening. And that little bit, it might be more than 1% a day, but that little bit of time that you're spending will make your overall stress journey, will kill into that, or cut into that, I should say, not kill, but cut into that by such, a huge percentage in like 1 year's time. Like you will have killed out so much stress, cut out so much stress out of your life just because you took those 5 minutes each day.
Exactly. Well,
Mhm.
the next thing we talked about was resources and managing your resources and thinking about that. And yet again, how you manage those resources is something that can be really, really important because there's this interesting dynamic where what you own can also own you. And so making
Mhm.
sure you're thinking about, well, how am I managing things? And how am I making sure that the things that I'm in possession of, they're not taking over my life, which can very easily
Mhm.
happen.
Yes. There's a question, it's from Veronica. It says, is that the same as delayed gratification? And I'm assuming she's talking about taking that time, or taking the time
Oh,
to organize, just to look at your schedule and organize and do the things, preparing yourself for the next day, just taking 5 minutes. I'm assuming that's what she's talking about.
well,
Maybe,
well, no,
maybe not.
thank you for bringing up the concept of delayed gratification. Specifically, when I'm talking about delayed gratification, it's I'm connecting that to the frontal lobes. So it's
Okay.
your frontal lobes that really allow you to have the maturity to delay gratification. But
Hmm.
delaying gratification, Veronica, being a primary feature that you see people who are successful tend to master. So people who are successful tend to be comfortable with that idea of having a long-term view, and saying, I'm prepared to make these sacrifices now in order to enjoy these dividends, enjoy this return on investment later.
Right.
So in a sense, Veronica, it is sort of delaying gratification because at the end of the evening, what is it that you'd rather do? You'd rather jump right into bed, forget about it. You might rather watch a program, And so there are other things you're tempted to do with that time, because if you've had a pretty stressful day, now you really just want to let your hair down and you just want to
Right.
relax. So you're
Right.
correct. You are kind of delaying that gratification to put in this little investment. So in a way, you might be delaying some gratification, but it will be so high yield. I know for a fact that, especially when my day is stressful, if I've taken the time the morning or the evening before to
Mhm.
actually make some preparations, when I
Yeah.
encounter that, it's so soothing. It feels
Mhm.
so good. It's like that's one less thing I had to worry about. So
Mhm.
there is a component of delaying gratification, and I'm glad you brought that out,
Yes.
because it's the
Great
reason
concept.
we don't all do it. We have 100 other things we'd rather do, but when you focus and you actually do that, it does have a tremendous high yield. So great point, Veronica. Now,
Yeah, it was a
Deborah
great
asked,
question and
how
and
can you
comment. Deborah has a great one too.
yeah,
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, she said, how can you protect yourself from burnout without becoming selfish or self-centered? Now, Sister Tante, when selfish, what did that make you think of?
Well, oh, that about Columbus's book? That well,
Columbus's
anyway,
book
his book, yes,
on
Doctor
selfish. Like,
yes,
you got,
Dr. Patti's book says that we
we
need
should
to
have
become
him on the show. We should
we
have
really
more.
should. You know what?
Yeah,
Great.
we're g-
Yeah, yes. I
we're
was just
gonna
on
do
one of
that.
his programs. Yes, we're gonna do that.
We're
Okay.
gonna do that. We're gonna totally. So,
We're planning live right in front of you guys.
well,
Uh,
yeah, because we want to
but
we want to bring more people on, because
oh,
we think you
for
guys are really
sure,
going to enjoy that. But
for
he
sure.
has a book entitled Selfish,
Yes.
in which he's advocating it's important to take care of yourself, and obviously it's not in the traditional term, selfish. But Deborah,
Right.
one has to take a look at motives, okay?
Mhm.
um in this fear of being selfish, or in this fear of being self-centered, what is the motive behind what it is that I'm doing, as to why I'm doing this? And Deborah, one motive could be because I don't care about anyone else.
Right.
That could be a motive that's driving your behaviors, or trying to protect yourself from burnout. But Deborah, the flip is also true. You might have a self-preservation mindset because you want to preserve yourself to serve the environment that you're in.
Yes.
So this is an important thing that you want to realize, is that part of self-preservation, part of some self-centeredness, is because you're committed to serving at the highest level possible. um and that's noble and that's good, and so there's a
Mhm.
component of that that I think is healthy, but some preservation and some desire to preserve yourself must also stem from the reality that you have inherent value.
Mhm.
If there was no one around you, you still deserve to preserve yourself. You
Mhm.
still should be behaving in ways that honor the reality that you have inherent value. And your value doesn't always just stem from your connection to your environment. Some of that
Mhm.
value is just because of who you are,
Right.
just because of who you are. And I think sometimes it can be dangerous for us to think that the only reason we have value is because we have kids, or because we have a job, or
Right.
because of the relationships, rather than not honoring the reality that some of our value stems from our intrinsic value. So great
Mhm.
question. But yeah,
Yeah, it was a great
but boundaries,
question.
yeah, but boundaries are important. Boundaries are important because they honor the fact that you have value. What were you going to say, sis?
They're huge. Yeah, this was a great question. And I just want to second everything that you said. And just, even as going off of Dr. Batista's book, Selfish, and he talks about this premise is we have to learn how to be selfish in the sense of taking care of ourselves. And this is what I talk to my clients about, is taking self-care, doing self-care so that you can be that better wife and that better mother and that better employee because you have done some self-care. And so sometimes we look at we don't do the self-care because we feel like, no, I got to take care of the kids. I got to take care of my husband. And yes, yeah, you do have to do things for the kids and your husband, and of course but also taking care of self makes you a better version of yourself, and that helps with your stress. So even as therapists and mental health professionals, we are taught to do self-care. Like, how can we show up? And Dr. Whyte, I'm sure you can agree with this, but how do we show up for our clients and for your patients if you haven't taken the self-care for yourself? So learning how to take care of yourself, it's not being selfish, not in the true sense of what selfish means. You are taking care of yourself so you can be a better husband, a better father, a better mother, daughter, and the list goes on and on.
I'm so glad you said that. And I just want to dovetail off of that, um, to Shauna's question. She's like, what are some techniques to get out of burnout when you're already there? And Shauna, one of the first things, besides of course getting support, whether a therapist, a counselor, or whatever help it is that you need, right? One of the things that we don't do
Mhm.
that's a really smart thing to do is identify what rejuvenates you. That's not, because that's
Yeah,
not stressful.
it's not.
What
It's not stressful.
identify those activities that rejuvenate you.
Mhm.
Identify those people that rejuvenate you. Okay. Because,
Mhm.
and it's important to have that list. What is the music that rejuvenates you?
Right. I
Take
have
the
a
time.
I have
What's
a
that?
playlist. I have a playlist that like gets me hyped up all the time. It's like,
It's like, I mean,
especially on Sabbath morning. I have a Christian playlist on Sabbath morning that is just like really puts me in that space. You know what I mean? But yeah, there's a
I have one in the morning that, like, even if I
yeah.
don't work out, it makes me feel like I worked out. It's no, but like, no, but it's really that's what the periods of calm are for. It's to prepare us for those
Mhm.
moments where now, when I don't have any energy left, the work has already been done. Is it a
Right.
drive? Is it a walk along the beach? Is it a
Right.
date with my partner? Is it like, what are those activities that, like, at the end of it you're just like, man, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I remember why I do what I do.
Right.
So yeah, it's really, so Shauna, that's one of the things that, okay, what rejuvenates me? What does it for me? I need a treat. I need something, I need a pick me up. What are those things that really and truly pick me up? And this is where we can't help but talk about addictions, because it's really relevant in this discussion, because a lot of
Mhm.
people, they're thinking about, some maladaptive ways of coping,
Yes.
well, here's part of the criteria. If I were you, I would go for, it doesn't just help you or pick you up in the short term, it helps you in both the short
Mhm.
term and the long. Those
Right.
that's what you're really looking for, because there are behaviors and activities you can engage in that might be a pick me up in the short term, but oh, they add so many negative consequences, so many things,
Yes.
and plummet you further into burnout. Not helpful. Not
Not
helpful.
helpful.
Oh, not
Not
helpful.
helpful.
No, so we're talking about, but there are activities that when you engage in them, you feel rejuvenated. You feel
Mhm.
rejuvenated. And this is why, obviously, some logic has to go into this. So I'll give you an example, for example. So it's documented that a walk in nature can be helpful. Now,
Mhm.
in the sad state of the world today, yes, you need to make sure it's safe. Watch out for the mountain lions and all this other kind of stuff. Take the necessary
Well,
precautions.
I live in Alabama right now, so I don't have to worry about mountain lions, but
They, they don't
when
have
and if I
gators.
return to
They
we
don't
don't
have
have
gators down there.
no,
No,
that's Florida. No, we do
oh,
not.
okay.
They
You
do
guys are
have
good.
deadly snakes, but, like, I can run from a snake, so I'm good.
But the reality is, don't let that stuff scare you, because 9 out of 10 times it's going to be a nice, peaceful walk. Carry a stick, do what you need to. But the bottom line is a nice walk in nature. A lot of people talk about how they feel rejuvenated from something like that. For
Right.
me, I mean, I love the beach. Just something about being next to water. sometimes a nice drive, and these beautifully manicured communities. It
Stop
just can
making
feel
me
so
jealous because I don't get to see the water ever. Stop it.
good. Well,
Just
you
just because you took over my state and I left my state, it doesn't give you the right to talk about, "Oh, I just like the beach," and I
well you guys got to come on back.
I know you are absolutely right. We
you
do,
guys
but
you guys got to
we
come on back.
we
But
absolutely do.
but Shauna, your question is a super important one, and that is really the homework assignment, guys. Like, while you have the time, be sure you're taking the time to really
Mhm.
identify what are the activities that rejuvenate you, so that everything is right in place. What's the music you need to listen to, whether it's a walk, and then the drive, the walks, the places you need to visit. Sometimes it's a really healthy meal. Yeah, you
Yeah.
just figure it out so that now you can put those things in place.
Mhm. Mhm. And I don't know if you talk about this in your book, but this is probably my favorite thing to talk about, and I feel like I talk about it all the time. But learning how to set boundaries too, because that helps you to stay in that space as well. So
No,
learning how to set boundaries. Do you talk about that in your book?
in the relationship section, we talk
Okay.
about setting boundaries. We talked about the how do you set that beautiful yes, the beautiful no, actually, and the
That's what I
ugly.
meant. It was a
Yeah,
beautiful no, I think.
the
Yes.
beautiful no. Yeah, the beautiful
Mhm.
no and the ugly yes. Because relationships, like, I mean, when you think about people you really enjoy, they respect your boundaries. They respect your boundaries, and you respect theirs. Like, that's the relationship that's going
Mhm.
to thrive. Is you guys actually respecting one another's boundaries and knowing how
Right.
to communicate with one another, and be able to get your needs met, while at the same time respecting boundaries. I think that's really, really important.
Mhm.
It is definitely a topic that we cover in the book, because
Yeah.
that, like, all that discussion we had, that was related to Shauna's question. That's
Yeah.
that vital of rest. That's one of those
Mhm.
seven vitals, but one of the vitals is rest and recreation. And
Mm.
it's because that's what the book is arguing, is there's a way to leverage each of those vitals to position you to kill burnout. And that's an important one.
Right.
Systematically.
No, it's huge.
Systematically. What's that?
Yeah. No, yes, that's huge. That's huge to systematically
Systematically
yes.
putting in place opportunities to rest, and
Yes.
understanding that rest is an active process, and it can truly rejuvenate you. No, so that's
Right.
really powerful.
I think this is a good place because people are already asking too, and we're going to talk about it at the end as well. But how to get your book? Matter of fact, I see two copies behind you. Maybe you want to
Oh
grab
yeah,
one and put it up for the people so they can.
absolutely.
Okay, you got one right there. You got three copies. Excuse me.
I do. I do.
I would
Okay.
surround myself with my books too if I have written a book. I would just
No,
surround
totally. We're
myself.
totally available on Amazon. As soon as you put, Killing Burnout, we should pop right up, and the cover is unmistakable. Yeah, so we're putting that in the chat right now. Um, and Amber is reminding me, really, that we also have a Facebook group. So that link, if you click on that link, then you'll come to our Facebook
Yes.
group, where we're going to be having content where we're unpacking it as well, because we really want to enrich the experience that you're having. And
Right.
with the info at the Mastermind Institute, there are those of you that are going to want to order this in bulk. And so if you email us, we will share our bulk rates, and we'll do something special for you.
Mhm.
And so, so yeah, but thank you for asking. Yeah, but you just going to Amazon, and you type in Killing Burnout, and we'll pop right up. We're also on iBooks as well. So for those of you who like, just a digital copy so that it can really follow you everywhere, we are also on iBooks, Amazon, and we are on Kindle. So props to Dr. Sereni Walazonia, who hooked all of this.
Wonderful.
She's really attentive to our infrastructure and really positioned
Yes.
us for success. So props.
That's great. So that you guys can pick up the book so you have no excuse but to to pick up the book and bless yourself with that information. I mean, we're sharing highlights here from these programs that we're doing, but you're going to want to just dive into that book and really apply it into your life. So we have a question. There's a question there for you.
Right. So Clint, our good friend from, is it Longview, Texas?
Longview, Texas.
Is it? It is Longview. Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
Clint from Longview, Texas said, so understanding the framework of time management plays a big role. Yeah, Clint, I can't emphasize that enough, that our planning, just if you can effectively plan your time. In fact, if I do an audit of most of your calendars,
Mm,
that really quickly can communicate, is your scheduling aligned with your goals? And then John Maxwell, he talks about, if I can just observe your behaviors, I can tell you if you're going to be successful. But yeah, because it's all about how you condition yourself to use your time. There are people who, after 4 years, they've positioned themselves for, graduating from an institution, or, they've furthered their career. And other people with the
right.
same 4 years, they've made choices where they have less options, including sometimes even incarceration.
Right.
And it all came down to how you're using your time.
Mm,
You know what's really weird about the system on Earth? Like, this is how important decision making is. You can spend 20 years building a career that one decision shatters in 5 seconds.
yes. No,
It's
that's true.
just
That's
that
true.
you can't get, like, so how important is it that you guard your time and you make sure that your time is consistently moving you towards your
Mhm.
goals, your dreams, and your desires. So Clint, I that's critical. Your time and how it unfolds is the currency to your dreams. Absolutely.
Mhm. Mhm. Somebody's asking, are you also on Audible?
Are we? We are not on Audible. We are not on Audible. So
Hopefully.
yeah, I mean, Dr. Walazonia, of course, my partner,
Right.
my business partner, just brilliant. Got to give her that shout out. But she
Yeah.
helped us finish the book. She's a big reason why you have it in your hands at this time. And then, in terms of getting it on those platforms, just
Right.
just absolutely phenomenal.
Yes,
But
maybe
yeah, that's probably
that will
next.
wait, maybe one day it probably is the next
That's
step because I have to
that's
it
probably
really
next.
I mean, people love that because they can do it in their commute. See, they're using their time wisely, Dr. White. It's like you already have to spend, let's say,
True.
30. Well, if you live in Southern California, let's just say an hour each way a day. So it might be 2 hours a day. You can finish a book quickly.
You can
If you
knock
live
out a
in if
book.
you live in Southern California, you will finish an audiobook very quickly.
No, it's well said. Especially if you're trying to run some errands. No, it can
Yeah.
be awesome. It
Mhm.
can definitely be an effective way to get it out. The statistics of the number of people, shout out Cassie. Thank you so much for this question. The statistics of the number of people who don't utilize their PTO is so
Yeah.
high. Much prayer is needed for the workforce in several countries, of course, and
Yes.
including ours. Um,
Mhm.
I remember there were some places I worked at where it was hard to find coverage, or there were so many things you needed to do in order to take the time off. Sometimes you're required to anticipate that you're going to need that time off like 3, 4, 5 months in advance. So there can be all these little systems that make it so difficult
I
for
was just
you
gonna
to get
say
that
they're
time off.
making it difficult.
Yeah, it can be challenging, but the bottom line being, take the time off. I was listening to one influencer who he mentioned that at the beginning of the year, he plans all his vacations. Like, that's the first thing put into the calendar.
Smart.
Just
Smart.
brilliant. Just brilliant.
Yeah,
You sit
it
down
is
with the family. These are the 4 vacations we're taking. This is how this is going to unfold. And
Right.
it's so helpful because now your agenda doesn't get taken by other people. It's like,
Right.
no,
It doesn't get
those
hijacked.
it doesn't get hijacked. It doesn't get
Mhm.
hijacked. So it's something you really want to put intention into.
Well, listen, I want you to we did the 7 you mentioned 7 vitals. I think we
Oh yeah.
have talked about he said, "Oh, yeah." I think we've talked about 3 with
Yes.
time, sleep, or getting
Resources.
rest, resources. What's that 4th, vital? Well, yes.
So just so you know, we talked about time, we talked about resources, then we talked about rest and recreation. So those
Yes.
4. The next one would be relationships.
Ah,
And just really valuing your relationships and then saying, okay, well, what energy do I need to put into making sure I know how to nurture my relationships?
mhm.
What boundaries do I need to put in place to make sure that I'm able to recognize what are good relationships, what are bad relationships?
Mhm.
Um, and remember, the goal of this is to kill burnout. So, who are the people that help me and actually like kind of pour into me? It's like I feel rejuvenated. They actually help me in my
Right.
quest to kill burnout. And who are the people burning me out? You know, these are
Figure
good
figure
things to
figure that one
understand.
out quick.
Figure that one out, and then you can behave accordingly. Now, a lot of times
Right.
you can't just pluck people out of your life as much as you would like to. It doesn't
No,
work that way. But
no.
you can be aware of what's happening. Sometimes this is where getting a coach or a therapist, they can help you understand how to set those boundaries, what might be appropriate consequences, how to enforce those consequences.
Mhm.
And then they can help you understand what might be some issues going on with you that's setting you up to fall victim to some of those maladaptive relationships,
Like,
because
why do you
that
keep
can be.
choosing? Yes,
What's
like, why
that?
do you I was saying, like, why do you keep choosing these type of people to be in your life, whether that's, you know, a significant relationship or even friends. Sometimes we just choose,
Totally,
I'll
totally.
just say toxic friends or that friends that, really lead you to be stressed out and eventually you get very burned out, but you keep choosing the same type of friend or the same type of boyfriend or girlfriend. Yes. Or even husband and
And
wife
it,
or
it needs to,
wife.
and it needs to alert you that, what from my past might have positioned me to
Right.
keep allowing myself to be victimized in this way. And so now when you repair those things, it positions you to really start embracing healthier relationships. So that's relationships.
Yes.
Um, the big one is purpose. Purpose is a huge vital,
Huge.
because sometimes burnout is escalating just because you forgot your purpose.
Mercy.
Part of what can burn you out is you forgot why you're doing what you're doing. So that some of
Mhm.
being restored is remembering, hey, why am I doing this? So we actually have 3 dimensions of purpose that we talk about. So that the first
Mhm.
dimension of purpose being your path, and there being significant things that have taken place in your past that define who you are,
Mhm.
and your path playing a role in giving you a hint of your purpose, giving you a hint
Right.
of maybe what it is you're called to. Why are certain things so special to you? Maybe as you watch that family member struggle with that medical condition, that's what planted the seed that led to you really having a passion for becoming a physician
Mhm.
or a health practitioner of some sort.
Right.
So the idea just being, though, that your path can have some really significant clues on your purpose. The second dimension of your purpose being talents. Like, what are those talents you're endowed with? What are those things that if you did them, it would be so high yield? Even with minimal investment, you very quickly can develop those talents into skill, because that's the
Mhm.
next thing. When you recognize your talents, it's important to have them go from just talent into actual skill. But then the
Mhm.
last dimension of your purpose being you're responsible for impact.
Yes.
That path And that talent and turning it into skill position you to make an impact.
Mm.
Ladies and gentlemen, so much of our healing would come from us utilizing our talents and our skills in making an impact. So much
Mhm.
of our healing would come from that. And you get a lot of people who they're not getting the dividend of that healing because they're not making that impact. And
Mhm.
that's really important, and it all connects to purpose. Take the time
Right.
to figure out your why. As Viktor Frankl quoting Nietzsche says, a man or woman who has a why can get through any how.
Yes, that's powerful. And, I think this is, because I do work as a mental health professional at a university and I work with so many young adults. And I feel like this part right here, this is something that should be so focused on before they even enter college. Because a lot of times they come with majors, they already start taking classes, and these are things that maybe their parents said, "Oh, you'd be good at this," or don't you want to do this? Or, maybe they didn't really want to be a doctor or be in pre-med or biology, but the parents thought it was such a great idea and they're trying to make the parents proud, but it's not their real purpose or their real calling. And so they're doing somebody else's what somebody else wants for them, and they end up being miserable and causing
Kind
a
of
lot
just
of mental
going
health issues.
kind of just going through the motions. Like
Yeah.
when my excitement really just skyrockets when I think about imagine you saying, okay, well, this would be good for me. But imagine you raising a child who understands their seven vitals.
Woo, woo.
Like that's
Yeah.
just, oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's huge.
You designing your home. Imagine a home system that honors the seven vitals, that
Mhm.
recognize, look, man, spirituality is something we got to take seriously.
Right.
Um, Relationships, time management. The one that we haven't covered yet, for example, is health, both
Yes.
mental and physical. Like,
Yep.
what do we do? What do we do to optimize our health? We're not waiting to break down, whether physically or mental. What are those activities that enhance our health? Um, one of my favorite concepts is the difference between the brain and the mind.
Yes.
So if you think about a bulb would really signify the brain, and
Yes.
everything has to be intact.
Right.
But when the light comes on, that's what signifies the mind.
Mind. Right.
That's and you want that your mind shines as brightly as possible. That's
Yes.
the reason why it all fits. That's the reason you take your health so seriously.
So
That's
serious.
why all of these vitals help your mind to shine brightly. And
Mhm.
that's really what you're going for. But I just get so excited when you imagine building a family system around
Yeah.
these concepts. Imagine an institution that says before all our graduates graduate, we want them to know their seven vitals.
I would say part of the freshman orientation before, I mean, that needs to come in with them, because by the time they're seniors, they may have taken some courses or even majored in something that really isn't, I'm talking about purpose
Isn't
now, isn't
right.
what they're supposed to do. Or then while they were here, maybe they're taking the proper program or degree and everything, but they weren't able to manage it well. Not, so their mental health wasn't good because they didn't take care of their health. They didn't know how to manage their time, the rest. I mean, these are all these seven vitals that you're talking about. These are the things, especially dealing with young adults, that I have to highlight these things and talk about these things with them, because their stress level, their mental health stuff, their physical health is just, and really their mental health, that's why I'm seeing them, is not where it should be. And then they want to use other not negative, I should say negative supplemental things to get rid of their stress, like the alcohol, like the weed, and it just doesn't do anything to get them to kill burnout. It doesn't really kill it.
It doesn't help long term. It doesn't help
No.
long term. Ultimately, the greatest tragedy is getting to the end of one's life and then doing this audit and seeing, oh my goodness, there's a vital I neglected that would have been so helpful going through life, so
Right.
helpful in killing burnout. That to me is just a huge tragedy. You
Mhm.
mentioned, hey, imagine getting to the end of your 4 years and saying, oh my goodness, I could have done this. Imagine
Right.
getting to the end of your life
Yeah.
and you're like, I neglected rest and recreation. I neglected maybe spirituality. And we're not prescribing spirituality. Like
No.
that's up to you. But at least you gave it attention to define it for yourself.
Right.
Um, but at least you attended to those seven vitals, and you didn't miss an opportunity for that vital to be an important tool
Mhm.
in helping you kill burnout in your life.
Right. Right. Yeah. So very well said. I want us to put up how to get the book again because we've done it once, but we need to do it again. And you guys definitely share this video. Share this on your social media. Everyone you know, every person on this earth can benefit from the information that's shared here. So definitely share it with your friends, family members. Let them know that hey, there's this book on how to kill burnout, but it's in the chat. Those
It's
are
in the
all the
chat.
different Yeah, it's in the chat. Those are all the different places that you can get the book. At Amazon. And if you do Amazon, you're going to get it really, really quick. But then
Absolutely.
Kindle, but actually can't beat Kindle because Kindle has instant download, or it's right there once you purchase it as well. So
And of course, don't forget the our
if you like
free
the book on
Facebook
Kindle,
group.
get it on Kindle.
Exactly. And don't forget our free
That's right.
Facebook group. And the
Yes.
one link we didn't put in there, the one link we didn't put in there was the iBooks. So you can also get it on Apple iBooks, as well.
Apple
Um,
iBook.
so so yeah, we feel like burnout absolutely needs to be killed, and so we want to have a robust campaign where we kill burnout
Yeah.
in each and every life.
Yes, because we burnout is emotionally taxing and emotionally killing so many. It's just burning us out, and we're just you get frustrated, you get overwhelmed, you just get tired, and then you start to just accept maybe this is how I will always feel, and you don't always have to feel that way.
It's so tragic.
Definitely not. That's not what this that I mean, we know that we live in this crazy world, but we can out a little peaceful space and make our life be a more peaceful space than it currently is for so many. We can create that space for ourselves just by little decisions that we make, with, like Dr. White was saying, with our rest, with our exercise, with our mental health, understanding our purpose. So these seven vitals can help you do that, and that's what this book is talking
Totally.
about. Yes.
Absolutely. And being
Yes.
systematic about it, just to maximize the impact. Right now, we're busy working on a companion workbook
Oh, great.
for this because we want you to have a system for killing burnout. And so
Yes.
join the Facebook group so that we can stay in touch with you and let you know when that's ready.
Yes. 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 Well, Dr. White, thank you. Thank you for writing this book, for having this concept. It's powerful. And it's what needs to know. Everyone needs to know this. So, as I said, please share on your social media because, again, everyone needs to hear this and it can change their life in such a powerful way. So I just want to thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you to our viewing audience for taking the time out this evening on a Monday evening. For people in the other parts of the world, it's maybe Tuesday morning, but thank you for taking time out just to spend this hour with us. And we will see you next week.
Thanks for having us. Till next time.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.